I built DealMachine as a helpful tool for myself, but the tough part came maybe 5 years in when you do something significant where we had grown quite extensively. Everyone looked and they were jealous, and then they were like, well, I'm going to copy that. So 9 copycat apps came out. I did the total opposite of what any entrepreneur should do. You shouldn't just retract in and try to solve it yourself, but that's when you should reach out to people for help and to figure out how you're going to get out of this mess. Reason why we've grown 44% in the last year, even as like a 7-year established company, it's because of like.
David Lecko, appreciate you carving out time, man. Thanks for showing up.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like you've been doing a little podcast tour right now. You just did something with Rich Dad, which is super fun. You've got a couple significant things that I want to talk about. DealMachine being a big one, which is a app software to find off-market real estate deals. And then obviously that sort of is part and parcel and tied into your real estate investing strategy and portfolio. Tell me, DealMachine has 5,000 reviews, and I think a few 100,000 people have downloaded it and use it at this point. Can you give me a basic rundown of what it is and who it's for?
Yeah, I mean, we believe that the path to wealth is finding discounted properties. So it's a marketing tool that gives you the data on who'd likely be willing to sell at a discount and the ability to get in touch with them. So normally you have to pay 10 cents to go get like contact info for a house. But we included contact information, unlimited access to that in the app for a monthly fee. And it's not just random phone numbers and emails, but it's like, how old are they? Where'd they go to high school? What's their credit score? What are their family members? And you can browse through all that, 5 layers deep on LLCs, et cetera. So you can call them with a dialer that helps you know what to say next. It kind of takes notes for you. Click, what do I say next during the call? Or you can send direct mail. So basically, in summary, it's a marketing tool for house flippers to find discounted property.
Sick. So I want to talk about kind of origin story, but let me ask you some focus questions on that business model first. So is that a feeder for a different business? Is it a standalone business model for you? What's the overall portfolio of kind of what you're working on and what you spend your time on?
Yeah, DealMachine is the business. That's it. And I built DealMachine as a helpful tool for myself when I was looking for my first rental properties, and couldn't really find anything that would cash flow that was listed with an agent on Zillow. So I knew I needed to go off market. And so just built a tool to help my lack of follow through doing that. So I do have a rental portfolio of 19 properties. And so still building that. I did 7 deals this past year, did $100,000 on the biggest deal. But other than that, it's just that and DealMachine. And on the side, I've been getting into race car driving. So that's a new thing I spent quite a bit of time on this past year. That was really fun.
That's amazing. What kind of cars?
Yeah, so I have a local series here where we race 30-year-old Miatas, and it's very competitive, very good for building your skill. And then I also got a really popular British race car that they just started bringing over to the U.S. Called the Jetta. So it's a really lightweight 2-frame chassis car that is powered by a Ford V6 engine. And it's a spec series, so you're racing against different people. And so it's all about building driver skill and competing driver to driver. So we did some really historic, badass tracks and had pro coverage on the series. This year was really exciting with the live streams. My favorite track was Watkins Glen. It's actually where they used to have the F1 race a couple decades ago, until they came up with safety standards and decided there's too many walls. It's too tight at Watkins Glen for the safety that they want to have. So that's it's just such a beautiful track and a lot of history there. It's super fun.
Wild. Well, let's get back to the race car driving because that's a trip. But the DealMachine, tell me about overarching business model. Because on the one hand, you've got the tech component of use the app, find the properties. How are you monetizing that business model?
It's a monthly fee. So it starts at $119 a month. Our biggest plan's at $500 a month. And so the biggest difference there is like we have some people with 6 of the $500 a month plans because they want to export and text message all those sellers. We have a texting platform built in. So They get like 100,000 exports with the contact info for $500 per month. If they were going to skip trace that elsewhere, it costs like $10,000 a month. So that's the business model is a monthly fee.
And so for people that aren't actively skip tracing, that's basically digging in and finding the data behind how to get a hold of people.
Yeah. So the term skip tracing, it came back like from, I think back in the day, if you had, if you were a criminal and you skipped your court date, there'd be like a certain person who would go trace the skipper. And so they would track them down. And it's just a term that's been very popular ever since. It's evolved, right? And skip tracing just means you're going to find the property owner's phone number. They're not criminals or anything, but that's where the term comes from.
That's amazing. I did not know that. And it's funny because I've heard the term skip tracing for decades and I never knew where it came from. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Where do you get the data today? So as a software provider, I mean, data's all over the place. And it's changed a ton. How do you manage that? Do you have a single source API? Is there somebody that feeds the data in? Do you have to dig around for it? And obviously the value is in the whole software and building the whole thing. It's not like, oh yeah, you can just find the data here. You still need the software. How hard is it to do that these days?
Yeah. So there's 3,000 counties, and those county level data providers are kind of becoming a commodity. Like the price just keeps coming down on those. So I think for like maybe $300,000 a year, you can license all the county data, and you can actually, get daily updates on that and big dumps. The API is not useful. You want to get the full data dump, because once you have the data in your database, then you can do a lot more things in the app. The API is just like one-off data, but you couldn't display all the properties, at once if you didn't have all that data in your database. So, man, I think the most people are getting that from like First American Title Company is just kind of like the table stakes, version of the data that you need for that, and pretty high quality. And they, like I said, it's like a commodity, basically. You couldn't build the system to collect all that data and for like less than 300,000. So you might as well just buy it. The price keeps coming down. Now the contact info, it's very much our secret sauce, and how we put that together is also kind of like a moat. It's like not exactly easy if you have a file on every person in the US to really match that accurately with the property and stuff. So wouldn't be able to disclose that. I don't even know that, because I have an engineering team that's figured that out. But it's been a reason why we've grown 44% in the last year. And even as like a 7-year established company, it's because of like the value we've been able to provide with that data.
Love that. What has the challenge been in the more recent years? So you started it 7 years ago as a software to help you as a real estate investor. And actually, before we get to the most recent challenge, what made you think, hey, I should pursue this as a business versus just using it as a tool to invest in my own real estate?
Yeah, so I built it as a tool for my own self, and it was just on my phone. There was somebody who ran a meetup in Indianapolis to educate wholesalers on how to find deals, and she came every month to educate them, and then she'd buy from the wholesalers. So she'd be their buyer. She wanted to buy 30 deals per month in Indianapolis, which really blew my mind. And when I came to that meetup and I had made the tool, I was kind of showing her what I had. She's like, well, how do I get a hold of that? I'll spend $1,000 to try any new marketing. I was like, what are you, what? I didn't even try to sell it. And so I was like, I got to get on the app store so you could actually use it. I had to come up with a name to put it on the app store. And in my previous job, if I like closed a deal, my boss would be like, man, David, he's a deal machine. That sounded great. It felt good. And so I just thought that was cool. It's what I called the app. And slowly it just kind of built up that this app kind of made it easier to do stuff investors were already trying to do. And I think that's the secret sauce. If there's one thing I've taken away from doing this for 8 years, it's like, if you're in business, you want to make it easier to do things people are already doing rather than reinvent how people should be doing something. That's very difficult to change behaviors. And we've gone down that path a little bit and learned the hard lesson the long way. But you don't want to make people do things differently. You just want to make it easier to do what they actually are already doing.
That is not something you normally hear software developers say. Most software developers, no. Most software developers are doing literally what you ask them to do with no regard to the friction or the ease of implementation or execution or user experience. As somebody that develops software, this is my experience.
Okay.
Your background is software engineering, right?
Yeah, I did computer engineering, but I have not developed the software since like the first year. That was really taken over by I asked my friend to be my partner. He's 50% partner. He took over a lot of the development. I haven't done it since then, 7 years ago, and have focused more on pretty much all other aspects of the business.
Awesome. So he's responsible for the software side of things, and you are responsible for growing it?
We actually have a head of engineering who's responsible for managing the engineering team. So we got a team of 7. They're all in Indianapolis and St. Louis, and now 1 in Maryland. But we actually just have them follow a process, and then my business partner, he's like a very, very popular, not very popular, but very special software developer, where he just not only has the ability to code the database side, but also the front end side, and also make it look good, like good intuition on brand and how things look and feel. He's just one of those unicorns. And so he works as part of the team, as well as kind of advises, technology architectural decisions. But then we have somebody come in to make sure everyone's following the right process, et cetera, to make that smooth.
Yeah. For anybody that's not, anybody that's watching, that's not a software developer or running a software company, it is tremendously uncommon to find developers that are really good at front end and back end and architecture, right? Those are typically 3 different skill sets. So front end being, what is the design and how do you actually execute the code that allows people to interact with your software, so the user interface. And the back end being kind of the database stuff and where stuff's stored and how does it move and how does the program work on the back end. And architecture obviously plays into that. But that's when you say unicorn, that tracks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no question about it. What do you think the most difficult thing has been in launching an app and growing it?
The most difficult thing was definitely my business was a rocket ship. So I kind of worked 2 years before I could pay myself a salary, and that wasn't like hard, but it was something I was so engrossed in, I couldn't focus on anything else. And so the time actually passed very fast because there was nothing more important in the world that I wanted to work on. I didn't go on trips. I had 3 roommates to cut costs. I didn't have a nice car, but I was fully excited to work on this software that I just had this feeling. I knew this was going to help. I knew this helped me, and I wanted to keep doing that and growing and helping others as well. But the tough part came maybe 5 years in, when you do something significant where we had grown quite extensively. Everyone looked and they were jealous. And then they were like, well, I'm going to copy that. So 9 copycat apps came out. That was the first time I'd ever experienced anything less than total up and to the right. And so I just wasn't sure what was going to happen, right? Just kind of being new to business and having quite a bit to lose at that point, right? And we'd grown to like a 12 million run rate at that point in 4 years or so. And so the toughest part was just the uncertainty of that. And I mean, I think 8 of the 9 apps turned into nothing. And then one of them kind of became a competitor. So, it wasn't as big of a deal as I thought. And I would say that was the toughest part though, because there was like a 9-month period where finally had big boy money for the first time. I bought a 6,000 square foot house. I bought my dream car, the Ferrari 458. And then I also hired 50 people all at once. And so that was right at the moment where some of these other apps came out and some of the attention that we were getting from people was getting diverted, right? So a lot of the mind share was no longer just us. And so less people came in. So what was once a very profitable company kind of had some moments where it was break even for several months in a row. And I was like, oh crap, what is going to happen? What am I going to do? And so, I didn't sleep. I didn't really have time to be with friends. I remember I was at a Thanksgiving. It was this time of year, 3 or 4 years ago. And everyone was like singing around the piano. Somebody was playing and I was in the other room, just scrolling on my phone, playing chess, because how could I have like a good time and feel good when I had this uncertainty going on? So I would say I did the total opposite of what any entrepreneur should do. Is you shouldn't just retract in and try to solve it yourself, but that's when you should reach out to people for help and to figure out how you're going to get out of this mess. And so should that type of thing happen again, I'd handle it way better, I would say, having gone through that and felt how painful that can be, and how unnecessarily, long that period lasted, rather than me go out and try to get help right away or talk to peers, et cetera, for support, ideas, et cetera. So, I mean, needless to say, we got through it. I didn't fire a single person. I didn't sell the car. I didn't sell the house. But we had some tight months for sure. And a huge way we got out of it was we didn't ever do any marketing ourselves up to that point. My company grew because of referrals from people on YouTube that educated how to invest in real estate. And so we started and formed our own marketing team, took some of the existing staff and formed a marketing team. So we started to take more control of the message and the marketing that my company needed to keep growing. And so that was like a pretty crazy thing looking back, that we had a company that big with no marketing.
I love that. I mean, I think that they're mixed. It's a mixed bag, right? Today, more than ever, so Easy Pay Direct, and we do the payments for thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs. And one of the things that we see more commonly today than ever before are people going from zero to, several hundred grand or $1 million a month plus. But almost always the way that's happening is paid ads. And paid ads can be a great lever, but they also usually come with a pretty tight margin as you're growing, because you're just chasing the conversion. And if you can get an ad to work, even if it's, $1 in, $1 and a penny out, it's moving, right? It's moving the engine. But if it stops, it creates quite a bit of stress. So growing organically has this huge benefit, but you have a lot less control over that engine. You mentioned two things, though. You mentioned the growth being sort of organic, but really it sounds like sort of partnership driven, content driven for sure, and education driven. Did you have a rev share with the YouTube content creators, or were they just excited about the product? What was the growth strategy there?
Yeah, not at first, but they naturally started picking up the app because it was just such a good app, good product market fit, and telling people about it because that was what was best for their audience. About 9 months in, I thought, man, somebody could come in and start paying them and they might switch what they were talking about. Let me just call them all and say, hey, I'm going to start paying you guys money. They love that, 25%. And then as time went on, we had the opportunity for increasing that with different tiers based on like, hey, if you just want to talk about, if you want to post a video every month and you're bringing in people every month, like we can get you even at a 40% tier. So that's how we did the revenue share affiliate program at DealMachine. And it just evolved like that, but not at first, which was cool. When I say cool, I mean, obviously it's cool not to have to pay anyone to do it, but it was cool and a huge honor at first that it started happening because they truly believed that this was like a helpful thing for people. So I knew we were onto something, when that was naturally happening. And I just, as a business owner, of course, I love all attention, but I always have a much better feeling when I know the attention's coming from somebody who's genuinely using the tool themselves, not just pushing it to make money, So that's why I was saying it, like that was just so cool how that happened. And I'm continue to be thankful for that today.
Back to all these companies that effectively scale quickly through ads. If you're good at marketing and you're good at sales, you can oversell. And you can oversell the click. And that doesn't mean you have a good product, right? It's not often the best product that wins. It's the best marketer that wins. Totally. And if you get organic attention and conversion, it speaks to the product more than the business model, which I love. What do you think is particularly unique about the DealMachine product that people like that's different than the other products out there to skip trace and to find contact info and help people invest in real estate properties?
Yeah. So I guess skip trace has been around a long time. We pioneered the unlimited contact info last November. And I think the old way was you get 3 phone numbers, 3 emails, and 3 names, but you didn't get any DNC info. You didn't see who was the renter, who was the owner. And you only get 1 phone number per person. In DealMachine, you actually have the same 3 people show up, but you can click into each person, and each person may have 2 or 3 phone numbers, cell phone, landline, also emails, et cetera. And not only do you have the numbers and the numbers are connected to that person, but you do know like 40 different other things about that person that you can view and or filter by, including age, how long they've lived there, what other properties do they own, even their credit score, if they're empty nesters, if they're veterans, if how much credit card balance they have. Like, it is a screen that you can view that. You could filter by that information. And just, we've all actually heard the sales term by Chris Voss, right? Who was like the FBI hostage negotiator. And he was like, one of the most powerful tools that we've used and continue to use in sales of all disciplines is labeling. You can't label if you don't know anything about the person or your type of prospect, right? But when you can't get the info out of them that you need during the discovery phase, you can't like really provide a strong prescription or sale or solution to that problem. And one way to break through is labeling, right? And you can have a lot better chance of labeling when you have 40 fields about that person. So let me give you an example. Like, let's say you got a tummy ache and you're hunched over on the street corner. Somebody comes up to you and they're like, "Hey, are you okay?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." And you just want them to go away, right? And then you walk over to the doctor's office, and then that same person walks in too. But then they put on a lab coat, and now they have the doctor's coat on, and they're like, "Hey, are you feeling okay?" Now you're like, "Oh my God, I'm feeling terrible. I ate this thing last night. I have no idea how I can stop throwing up." It's like, it's the same person. But you didn't like trust the random person on the street until they had that doctor's coat on, right? And then they ask you, and then they're like, "Hey, I would prescribe to you this solution," and you listen to it because now you believe them, right? So if you can't get through that discovery phase because you're an unknown person, it's really hard for them to believe your prescription. They just kind of want you to go away. So that's what some of the extra data helps you do, is basically during the discovery phase, maybe label, say, "Oh, perhaps you're feeling this way because maybe you have credit card bills that are like really becoming a problem for you to know how to pay." And you could see that. And then the person's like now opening up because they're like, "Oh yeah, man, I just had these medical bills. It's on the credit card. Can't get underneath that 17% interest rate. It just keeps racking up." So that's what's different about DealMachine and why I believe we've grown 44% without a doubt.
Richer data.
Yes.
Love that. What are you doing differently as the owner today in your day-to-day operation than you were when you were trying to get things off the ground, going to 0 to $1 million?
Yeah, I didn't hire anyone until I had money to pay the person. So when I didn't have money to pay the person, I was mainly just trying to get the word out, going to conferences so that I could build relationships with Sean Terry, as was the first conference I went to. But he was actually too busy running the conference. And my master plan of like, hey, if Sean likes me and the product, he'll tell his like students about it, didn't really work out. But I met someone at his conference that started posting YouTube videos and just reached even more people than I ever imagined. So put myself where serendipity can happen. Nowadays, I'm not kind of going to random conferences as an attendee to go, build relationship with the host possibly. But, thankfully, like we've been established in the industry. So what I want to do is continue to get in front of people and help them. So I go to conferences, run a challenge at the conference, and then people in the audience will actually use the data to make cold calls. And if we have 200 people in the audience and I help them make cold calls for 30 minutes, someone will get an appointment. We give away a $2,000 prize, and we'll split any revenue from continued subscriptions with the conference host, right? So that's definitely changed big time, and has been a great success the last 2 years where we've been doing those challenges.
That's cool. I love that from a marketing perspective. So are live events a significant portion of the marketing strategy at this point?
We do like 9 a year. So, and we get a couple thousand people sign up every month. So I wouldn't say a significant portion, but I'll always take those opportunities because nothing beats in person. And they usually are ROI positive, like in that format, which is really nice. 40% of our people come from partners, though, just in general like that. So not necessarily just live, but still partners that have like a coaching program that want to include DealMachine for their students. So the coaching program has less churn because they know they get that when they're continued members, or just straight recommendation or incorporation into education, and then we pay for referrals as well.
Yeah, I think that point is super relevant to tons of different business models, which is if you can find a partner where your product is additive, meaning that the partner is more valuable to their client base because your product or service is being offered in tandem with it. That's where the stickiness is, right? That's the best type of partnership.
Yeah.
Where do the other 60% come from? If 40% are coming from partners today,
Or organic, and then
60?
our own marketing, and that's where the rest comes from.
How do you get? You mentioned the YouTube thing. How do you get placement in the App Store today? How do you pop up first in the App Store when somebody types in real estate investment software, skip tracing software, or whatever?
Dude, I don't think we've put any thought into that, honestly. At first, I remember putting keywords like, driving for dollars, skip tracing, et cetera, that people might be searching. But I don't think anyone on my team has any type of focus on where we come up in the app stores, to be honest. I really don't. We want reviews there, right? So we send people to reviews there. And I think that probably helps.
Do you have a specific review funnel that you leverage to try to get the good people to post reviews? Do you just say, hey, post a review everywhere, or how does that work for you?
No. Yeah. So you want to find when somebody just had their aha moment or they're really happy. So if my support team solves a chat, they ask if the person's fully satisfied. And if they're like, hell yeah, then they'll say, hey man, it'd mean a whole lot if you just leave this review over here. That's the moment when we do it.
I love that. That's also a great thing to do. Those are, I have this general construct that a piece of real estate, it looks amazing, right? They can't articulate what all of the elements are that make it look amazing. But if you start to take the little pieces away, after 1 or 2 or 5 details get taken away, people look at it and they think, oh, it looks good, but not amazing. And as you take more away, it erodes more. And if you look at that from the other direction, it is all of those little details that make the picture amazing. And in business, things like having your customer service team ask for a referral in the moment of aha is one of those little details that creates a really strong engine to produce positive reviews, raving fans, whatever. But all of them are really important when you put them together.
Yeah, if you do it at random times, it's also super annoying. You don't want to make people mad asking for reviews and then leave a bad one.
What are the other little details that you have in business that you think are super important that people don't think about?
Oh, that's a good question. The first thing that comes to mind is the certain font, the certain shade of black, that we really wanted to have everything look and feel the same. I'm trying to think of other little details. I think one of the things I'm most proud of is my employee net promoter score is 90. So for those that don't know, you've probably been asked, like, how would you feel about this product on a scale of 1 to 10? And 9s and 10s are worth 100 points. 7, 8s are worth 0 points, and everything else is worth negative 100 points. So you're trying to see if people are promoters, neutral, or detractors. But you can also ask your employees how happy they are working at your company. And so 90 is really, really good. I think like most, tech products, they're like 30 to 50 would be good. And so 90 is really, really good. And I'm very proud of that. Have had an average tenure of 4 years now, but I only started hiring people like 5.5 years ago, right? And built up from there. So it's really a special place. We have people who are more senior in their career who say, oh God, I've never worked at a place like this where there's no drama. So a few things I feel like are important, because that's all like culture, right? Culture is what people do with lack of direction. Is a little thing that I took from this beautiful book called The Great CEO Within. And I've got it on my other shelf, but it's written by Matt Mocary. And his job is a CEO consultant in Silicon Valley, where they'll pay him to become the CEO, have the real CEO shadow him for like 3 months. He fixes everything and then hands it back to the CEO. And he's got this framework for having hard conversations. And that's one of our values. And the format for how he has the conversation is what's key for like the leader, and I started demonstrating, and then really ingrained, I think. So when people normally have feelings that fester and are annoyed by other employees, then they talk to each other about this and waste time. And it doesn't feel good when you overhear somebody saying that about you. So we say, no, go straight to the person. And you say it like this, like, hey, Brad, I really liked how you invited me on this podcast. And I really wish you would have sent me some Topo Chico so I could have enjoyed that with you over here in Austin during the podcast. And then now you have a response that's also in a framework. You'd be like, David, what I heard you say was you wish I would have sent you Topo Chico. I reject that because that's absolutely ridiculous. Nobody does that for podcasts that are virtual. And then that's it. You can accept it or reject it. And that's what's so awesome is it gives you the power to do so. And so, yeah, I think that's why, and it is a little detail that has really made a great culture. Cause dude, if somebody's like showing up late to meetings all the time, it wastes 5 times their annual salary when somebody's just not doing culturally what everyone else expects, because it wastes everyone's time who's hanging out on the phone, waiting, doing nothing for that person to show up or not. But then later they also like bicker and it wastes time. They're not being productive. They don't like their job as much. So really giving people the tools to have these conversations themselves has been a little detail I think has gone a long way.
What I got from that was the framework to have tough conversations.
Yeah. And not just telling them how to do it, but really like doing it. So we would, and this was next level stuff. I don't do this anymore, but for a while I had our leadership team once a month assigned hard conversations. We had to do it in front of each other because this is not natural. People don't want to follow it. You have to really demonstrate it and then get people to practice. So I'd do round robin feedback assignments, be like, Nate, today you have to give it to Josh. And dude, the first like 3-4 months, there was like real shit that people would say. And then after 4 months, I was like, hey, whatever you just said wasn't real. I find something real and you have to say something. And that worked to help really dig and push stuff out of people. But then eventually they really didn't have anything else left to say. So we stopped forcing people to do that. But I think that was really critical to like getting them used to having those tough combos.
And did that lead to them having the tough combos without prompt? So communication just got better amongst the team?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody came to me complaining, instead of me fixing it, I would give them the tools. As like, have this conversation this way with this person, and then report back to me on how it went. And then I'd go to the other person and I'd be like, hey, this person's going to come to you with a hard conversation. I need you to react to it in this way. However you feel, it's fine, but just use this format. And then they'd have the combo, not knowing I talked to either one. And then they'd come back and be like, man, that worked great. You know what I mean? So I'm their coach, but I need them to do the activity so they can then begin to do it themselves over time. So it's not something that just they feel comfortable doing it over time, but I really kind of acted as a coach and kind of also forced it with the round robin feedback with our leadership team. And I think over time they got used to it.
Insert funny advertisement here. Or just check out Easy Pay Direct. It's epd.com/BAM. And you can find out about credit card processing for your business. Lots of our guests use us for credit card processing. And this seemed like more fun than writing a scripted ad.
The details here make a difference to anybody that's running a business that has a bunch of employees that are wandering around talking shit or suppressing their shit or whatever. But do you have a forum for that? Did you specifically bring up the hard conversations in weekly meetings and one-on-ones? Or was it, hey, whenever it came up, we're going to drop what we're doing and go have to address this right now?
So you want your leadership to know how to do it really, really well, because they're the ones who are going to coach their direct employees. So we would do a once a month leadership meeting, and that's when I would do the round robin feedback for them. And so everyone would listen to the other leaders give feedback to each other. That's how we did it for 3 months. And then if an employee ever had a complaint and it came to me, I would coach them on how to have that convo as needed. The one other place that we actually do ongoing training, which I believe is a key part of any CEO's job, is training your people, is we have like a fun Friday meeting, and we have 3 questions with Kahoot, which is like a game. I don't know if you ever knew this. It's like a multiple choice game. Whoever answers correctly first kind of gets a score. It was invented by like a high school project, and it's taken off. Like, it's a super powerful way to make training fun. So we'll put like, how do you have a hard conversation? There's 4 options, and then everyone has scanned in with their QR code, and they can answer with their phone. And then there's a person with a high score at the end, right? Everybody just wants to compete. But then after the question's over, I get 1 minute to give a spiel on like, well, this is how to have it, and this is why we have it this way. And then we move on. So that's how I keep it fresh as well.
I love that. Kahoot.
Yep.
That's fun. So these are, again, this is like another small thing that contributes to the big picture that gives you an employee net promoter score of 90. What is the structure and framework of core values for you, and how does that play into having an employee net promoter score of 90?
Yeah, I think it's just my thumbprint is all over the company. And there were just 6 values I thought were really important to me. And I knew they were important to me because I was like, what pissed me off about past work environments and relationships? I'm going to make the opposite of that my values. And so one of the things was like, I just hate white lies. I think it erodes trust. I think that it gives you no benefit, even though it feels good in the moment. So telling the truth is one of our core values. And early on, when the app was like a little bit more shaky because we were new at software development and maybe it had bugs or maybe it went down, if the app wasn't working, my person doing communications was like, I'm not sure if I should send a message out. I don't really know how long it's going to be gone or what's even going on or what's going on. I was like, doesn't matter. Send the communication. Hey, the app's down. We don't know, but we're going to let you know ASAP. But we're on it, right? That goes, and we were scared. They were scared to send that. But the response we got was like, hey, we're rooting for you guys. We love you guys. Thanks. We know you'll figure it out. And so I feel like when people don't know the answer, they almost kind of white lie or like don't even come forth. But if you just always have a culture of like, I'm going to communicate what I know and the fact that it's important, and I'm going to communicate that I don't know, but I'm figuring it out. And that just builds trust. When you tell the truth, when you don't have to, then people will default to trusting you, and you will be a believable person, which is very important if you want them to listen to you for anything. So, dude, that value came from old relationship I used to have. We were trying to get COVID tests, and the person I was with called the doctor's office, said, hey, we're running late because of traffic. And I looked over, I'm like, it's Sunday morning during COVID. There's no traffic. They know you're lying. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just say, I'm so sorry, I'm late. We slept in. And it made me guess, like, what are they lying to me about? If they're saying these white lies that are really harmless and meaningless, but it always just bugged me. I'm like, what are they lying to me about? How would I ever know if they were? So that just personal pet peeve, but that's why it's my company value.
Yeah. Well, I also think that a reality of somebody that has a habit of lying, whatever type of lie, is if you are lying to other people, you're probably lying to yourself too. And I think that the lack of self-awareness is much more prevalent with somebody that is just accustomed to spitting out something that isn't accurate.
Man, that's pretty deep, and that's probably true.
Well, if I catch myself saying something that is a little off, and usually it happens when I repeat something a lot, and sort of after repeating and repeating and repeating, I kind of think about the marketing message of it, and I'm like, that doesn't sound great. And then it sort of permeates, and eventually I catch myself and I'm like, nope, cross the line there. That's not true. One of my favorite things in general is when that happens and somebody's like, really? I'm like, no. And because I want to call myself on it immediately so that I don't get in a situation where I'm operating through the lens of delusion, right? Because that's much more damaging than that white lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that's true.
One of the through line here through these 2 examples that you gave is articulating to people how to do the thing, how to live the value, how to have the tough conversation. Do you put time into the explanation of the core values, training people on the core values, hiring through that lens? Where else do they show up in your culture?
So I actually keep a note one of the things that I want to be mindful of is not be jumping on my team's ass with ticky-tacky stuff. So if there's something I noticed they did that I didn't like or feel was the best way, I put it in a note. And I have one-on-ones with them every Monday. That's the time when the one-on-one comes up. They're like, hey, do you have anything? Normally you're like, no, I don't know. But now I've got a whole list of weekly things that I'm like, hey, I'd love it if you did this better. I'd love it if you did that better. And recently there was, it's not even a company value, but every team almost had an example in the same 2-week period where they were struggling with something and they didn't tell me until it was such a big problem that now it's like a bigger problem to solve. And one was like a vendor that we paid for marketing, $500,000 spend, and the year's almost over. And I realized they like didn't deliver on like $200,000 worth of the spend. And so I didn't hear about it till last week, but my team member was struggling with it since July. And so it was not their fault. First of all, everything's your fault if you're the CEO. I was like, obviously I haven't trained on this. I need to train on this so my team feels comfortable. They're thinking, I'm going to help solve this myself so it doesn't bother David. And then I'm doing a great job by taking care of stuff. But really, I knew the CEO of this other vendor company. If I would have known, I could have just texted him. I'm sure it wasn't even on his radar. I explained, I was like, sometimes I'll interview my customers as podcasts, and instead of going through support, they'll text me. And I appreciate it because my support thought it wasn't an issue, but I could see, oh, it is. And so that teaches me I need to go train my support team on this particular issue. I'm so thankful that I got that text from them. So I was like, my team needs to see me as a tool. If they are struggling with something for more than a week, they need to bring it to my attention. Not necessarily that I need to do anything, but I at least need to know. And that way I can be a useful tool for when I'm joining them on conversations with partners, et cetera. And so that was just like a recent thing. And that's how I handle not bugging them with micromanaging feedback all week, but have a cadence of like, hey, this is stuff we could do better, or hey, I'd like to know about this stuff so I can help clear roadblocks. You know, as a leader, my job is to promote my employees and clear roadblocks. I can't clear them if I don't know about them. So that's another way I kind of facilitate what I want to train on. And of course, we had some Kahoot questions on it as well, so the rest of the company could understand that.
Dig it. So avoid the ticky-tacky throughout the week. Avoid all the little tiny critiques throughout the week. The thing that I hear a bunch of entrepreneurs saying in the background right now is, okay, well then how do you avoid just dumping a whole bunch of shit on them during your one-on-one?
Oh, okay. I feel like it doesn't feel like a dumping of shit, because we also have carved out time in the Fun Friday meeting for employee and customer highlights. So we probably recognize like 20 positive things on a weekly routine basis. So it doesn't feel like that. I don't think. Basically that's the thing is you carve out time to recognize all the positive stuff as well on a routine basis.
So throughout the week, are you spending your time gathering those positive things as well? Or as leadership, is that a concerted effort?
So so on the Fun Friday meeting, we kind of crowdsource it as well. So I'll call for people to recognize others. We also use a software called Bucket List, and it's a bucket list rewards. And so they have the ability to send each other $20. My team can send $20 to each other, and it's public. They're like, hey, AJ did an awesome job going above and beyond his job duties. He showed the company value of taking ownership because he stayed 30 minutes later on our webinar last night until everyone's questions were answered. That was awesome. Nobody asked him to do that. It was more than expected. $20 for AJ. And then everyone's like, awesome, AJ. It's really inspiring for everyone else to see that. So I'll review what those were sent from the past week, for example. One year, my team gave each other $15,000 total doing this bucket list stuff. But dude, it was worth it because it's just so exciting. And then when you do have something constructive, it doesn't feel like you're being beat down, right? And you don't want to give constructive stuff in person. All that positive stuff is done in front of everyone. So it's a great feeling. And that's how I help balance it out. So the constructive stuff doesn't feel bad. And I think another thing is literally and I have built a great relationship with the guy who used to service my car, and he's quit his job and started doing real estate investing now, actually, which is great. But man, I didn't feel good about the way something was handled. And dude, there's a lot of places I could service my car. I had the phone call and I was like, I want you to take this the right way. I'm calling you because, you know, I actually care about you. I think you're a thoughtful person. You've done so many good things in the past. And if I didn't care about you, I would blow this off. I'd take my car somewhere else, or I just wouldn't tell you. It's a waste of time. Knowing that this is to help, because I just genuinely think this would be helpful. Hey man, the way you did this thing was total bullshit. You know, so I think phrasing things with that context before just laying out what you didn't like is helpful, because it is true. I'm busy. People are busy. If you didn't care, you wouldn't tell them. So,
yep. But it doesn't feel that way if you just front load the conversation with the negative.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great, man. So something like the bucket list rewards. You're giving your team the ability to just give somebody else on the team $20 for doing something dope. A brand new entrepreneur can't run the risk of their team spending 15 grand and building some alliances between each other to throw money back and forth. At what point did you feel comfortable implementing a tool like that where it was okay to burn 15 grand a year in the name of a better culture?
I mean, I think we implemented that when we had 40 employees. So 15 grand divided by 40 employees is like $200 a person or something like that. So it's not that much, but I just thought it was cool when I told it all up. I was like, damn, that's cool. I did have to train my team. This is not for recognizing doing your job. Everyone should be doing your job. I know you guys love each other and you want to give each other my money to each other. That's just not the whole point. So I had to lay down some more guidelines about, you use this when somebody does something above and beyond that's inspiring, that deserves recognition. That's when we want to use this, right? And it's almost just as effective even without the dollar amount, because who cares? What's awesome is the acknowledgement, right? People don't need a $20 gift card. It's nice, but really the acknowledgement is often what's so important and often missed.
Yeah, that's great, man. I love that. Do you run the company through any kind of operational system? There are a few different operational frameworks to run companies. Like,
oh yeah, we got Traction back here. So I implemented quite a few things from Traction, not the whole thing in completion, but we do our weekly meeting using the Traction meeting agenda with my direct reports and other team direct reports. And so, I mean, that's a huge part of our operating system that we use. We didn't do the rocks and stuff because we did OKRs, which is more of a tech company goal setting framework. And then we just modified that because it felt too heavy, and we just really boiled it down to even simpler version of OKRs. And that's just evolved over time. The first time we did OKRs, it was so inspiring. It was so great. As the years went on, it felt like less great. So we simplified. So we just, that's like the hard thing. It's obviously Traction is like a proven framework, right? It's a thing. It exists. Thousands of companies use it and it works well. But I think one of the things my founder and I co-own DealMachine with somebody 50%, right? So it's both of our opinions that matter. Is he pushes me a little more to modify and tweak things to fit our situation rather than like blindly adopting thing verbatim. That's just something that's worked well for us. So that's kind of the version of our framework that we use to run our company.
I love that. So Traction is EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System.
Yep.
I was actually just talking to somebody about this. Of the people, I probably know, I don't know. I know tons of people that use EOS as a framework. I know 0 that use it exactly as it's prescribed. 100% of the people I know have modified in some capacity to make it their own. And I think in some cases, that's very good. In some cases, they fucked it all up because they didn't follow it to a T.
Right.
Is that a cat?
Oh, yeah. This is my cat, George.
What's up, George? I'm sort of afraid the cats are going to kill me in my sleep.
He's very disciplined. I taught him how to use the toilet. So he sits on the toilet seat, and then I've got an auto flusher that flushes every 3 hours to keep it fresh for him. but scoop less litter because of that. And it's a good party trick. People love to do it. George loves showing off when people come over.
It's a great party trick. How'd you teach him to do that?
There's a kit on Amazon, and it takes 6 weeks. You basically put the litter on the toilet, cut a hole out in the middle, make the hole bigger every couple of weeks until the litter is just on the ring. So he's got to end up perching on the ring to go in the toilet. And eventually you just take the litter away and he knows to go in the toilet.
Yeah, that's awesome. A dog would probably fall in.
I have not seen dogs be trained to do that, but it's a cat thing. Pretty cool.
I love that, man. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you carving out time, man. It's great to hear about the business. I think like there are a lot of fun frameworks within that. And the real estate side of things, I guess before we wrap, I want to dig into the real estate side of things a little bit, because DealMachine as a business, app driven, serving a dedicated market, your content is around real estate investing. But I love learning the structure of the business itself and growing it. It is hard to launch an app and get traction, but it sounds like you launched an app that had a lot of value, and that was the beginning of what allowed it to get traction.
It was helping people do something that they were already doing easier. That's why it actually worked well. And it did take 2 years of work without pay, first of all, as well. So it was like, I don't want to make it seem like an overnight success.
Yeah, for sure. But it started because you were doing real estate. So did you pump the brakes on real estate investment during that period of time? Did you keep doing that? And how does real estate investment fit into your world now? It sounds like you got back into it because you said, 19 properties in the portfolio, 7 in the last year?
Yeah, I did 9 deals in the first 4 years. And while the app was something I was using and also kind of trying to get other people to know about it too, but I was doing real estate. So those properties appreciated $1 million in the 4 years where I stopped doing it to focus on DealMachine. That's when I looked back and I was like, man, I should get some more of these properties. So yep, did it, 9 deals, took a break, came back to it, and still wanting to do about 7 to 10 deals per year.
Love it. Why single family home versus multifamily or something else?
I am in business to provide financial freedom, and I can conquer single families alone. And if I do multifamily, I have to go invest and have partners. And to me, that's not what freedom is. I don't want to have to worry about someone else's opinion. A lot of times being a business partner is even more serious than being married. So I just want to do stuff that I know well, that works well, and double down on that. That's why I still do the single family.
Dig it. And for clarity, there's kind of inside the world of multifamily, you've got small multifamily like a duplex or a 3 or a quad or something. And then you have probably what you're talking about, which is large multifamily, which would be like an apartment building.
Yeah. I don't think the duplex and the triplex is like a great play because the price per unit is going to go down, right? So people always it's like, hey, 3 units under one roof. But the type of person that wants to live in one of those in Indianapolis is like a lower quality tenant, which means more complaints, more fraud, more inability to probably not pay and get evicted. And since I am self-managing and want a lifestyle of freedom, I want tenants that are reliable, easy to work with. They probably like a B-class property. So it's like nicer than rental grade, but not too nice to where they don't want to rent it. They'd rather buy. So that's kind of my sweet spot. 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a yard. So they're the type of person that wants a nice apartment, but they want a yard for their pet. So it's just a sweet spot. I just wanted to focus in on that so it's easier to manage.
What's the biggest mistake you've made from a real estate investment perspective?
Yeah, that's really struggled with my first contractor because I paid him up front and then he didn't complete the work. So I just learned real quick, you have to make sure your incentives are aligned. And so pay him a start fee, pay him something as stuff progresses, and then pay him when he's done.
What's the biggest mistake you've made while growing DealMachine?
Man, when I started asking for feedback, I had multiple people say, David, you make me feel stupid when I suggest ideas. And that was really hard to hear because I encouraged everyone to do this during a public forum. So my whole company heard that, right? So how I responded was very important. But I genuinely took the feedback and I asked for more clarity. I was like, what do you mean exactly? When do I do this? So I fully understand. And what was happening was I've been working on DealMachine for 8 years. they were hired to come in and do a job 2 years ago. So they would suggest something I already tried 4 years ago. And I'd say, no, that won't work. How about what other ideas you guys have? And that'd make them feel stupid in front of people. So what I really needed to say was, hey, man, or hey, that's a really good idea. I actually had that idea 2 years ago. When I tried it, this thing happened. It's possible that things have changed now. Maybe we should try that again. Just wanted to let you have that context so that you can decide what the best solution is. And I'd like you to tell me what you think the best solution is. And I'm just want to provide context. So a big mistake was making people feel stupid. And so I had to change the way I communicate.
You're an interesting character because you've got a whole bunch of lessons that you can cite a direct source for or a direct framework that you're using. What are the most impactful books that you've read that might be helpful to entrepreneurs?
I still think The Great CEO Within by Matt Mochary is what I mentioned earlier is awesome. That hard conversation thing I mentioned, that's just like 3 pages of the book. I mean, it's a beautiful book. I think it's 100 pages. It's filled with stuff like that. It's super worthwhile. And that'd be my number one recommendation, actually. It's probably when you say entrepreneur, it's probably not valid until you have like a team, right? So it's all about being the CEO. So, but want to mention that for people who listen to this, you have a team for sure.
Yeah, I think that specifically for, I don't know, I think at different phases you need to hear different things. And I really lean in the direction of just in time information rather than just in case information. And I think that there is value in the just in case information because sometimes studying things that are outside of your current scope will open your mind to different possibilities. But if you're trying to learn lessons that you can apply right now, talking to people that are just a level above you or close to where you are much better to learn from than somebody that's 6 stages ahead of you because they're thinking about different things, right?
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Any podcasts or YouTube channels you follow and pay attention to?
Dan Martell is a private coach of mine for years. And
love that.
He's got a great social media following, and I would check out his podcast called The Martell Method. Yeah,
Martell is he's a buddy of mine. He's been on the Beyond a Million show, and I go on a snowboarding trip with him every year.
Cool. You must be pretty good at snowboarding. He's good.
Yeah, one of the few criteria of being on the trip is that you have to be comfortable jumping off a 10-foot cliff. So yeah, there's at least that.
Yep.
Love it. Well, David Lecko, it's been great, man. I appreciate you carving out time. Where do you want to point people?
DealMachine, my Instagram is DLecko as well. And if you guys want, let's see. I'm trying to think of what a great gift would be for somebody that just heard that. So I'll send you guys my 10 leadership frameworks. If you guys DM me the word framework, and that would be the place I'd go. Instagram, DLecko.
Dope. David, thanks so much, man. It's been great.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it.
My director of marketing told me to read this. Thank you for tuning in to Beyond a Million. If you liked this podcast, please subscribe and drop a comment below. We'd love to know your thoughts. If you want to learn the strategies that our guests such as Neil Patel, Amy Porterfield, and Grant Cardone use to scale their business, you can find more episodes on our website at beyondamillion.com.